Why is Jerusalem getting ready for the second coming? Jerusalem's secret preparations for the return of Jesus. A city at the center of history. A place where prophecy has unfolded for thousands of years. And now, something strange is happening in Jerusalem. A shift that is impossible to ignore. Preparations are underway. But for what? The answer to this question is more shocking than anyone could have predicted. Why is Jerusalem suddenly getting ready for the second coming? Why now? What do they know that the rest of the world doesn't? What cryptic message did the Bible reveal that's driving Jerusalem's urgency? And most importantly, could this mean Jesus is returning soon? What chilling signal did Jerusalem's priests just uncover that points to Jesus' return happening within our lifetime? What eerie seismic activity under the Mount of Olives is terrifying geologists right now? On that day, his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives, east of Jerusalem, and the Mount of Olives will be split in two. The prophecy is clear. Jerusalem is preparing, and what comes next will change the world forever. But will the world be ready for what's about to unfold? Or is the countdown already past the point of no return? For centuries, believers have watched for 4 major signs that would mark the approach of the second coming. And right now, all 4 are happening. Which of these 4 signs is the most terrifying? And why are experts saying it's already too late to stop it? One of these signs is more urgent than the others, because it may already be too late to stop it. The first sign: Israel has returned. The Bible prophesied that before Jesus returns, Israel would be reborn as a nation. And yet, it's what happened after Israel's rebirth that reveals the most disturbing truth of all. A prophecy given over 2,500 years ago. A prophecy many thought was impossible. But in our time, it came true. Isaiah 66 verse 8 says, "Who has heard such a thing? Who has seen such things? Shall the earth be made to give birth in one day? Or shall a nation be born at once?" And on May 14, 1948, that exact prophecy was fulfilled. Israel was reborn in a single day. What celestial event on that day in 1948 signaled God's hand in Israel's return? It wasn't just a coincidence. It was an undeniable sign that something bigger was at play. A nation that had been scattered for nearly 2,000 years came back to life. After the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 AD, the Jewish people were scattered across the world. But now, something is pulling them back. What is this unseen force gathering them at such an unprecedented speed? They were exiled from their land. They were persecuted in foreign nations. Many believed Israel would never exist again, but God had other plans. What divine intervention during World War II forced the world to give Israel back its land against all odds? And could a similar crisis be the final trigger for what happens next? In the ashes of World War II, a miracle happened. Against all odds, the Jewish people returned home. Israel was reborn. The exact prophecy written in the Bible came true in our lifetimes. Since Israel's rebirth, prophecy has been moving at an unstoppable pace. In 1967, Israel recaptures Jerusalem for the first time in nearly 2,000 years. In 1995, Jerusalem is declared the eternal capital of Israel. In 2018, the U.S. officially recognizes Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Every major global power is now focused on Israel. The second sign: the mass return to Jerusalem. The Jewish people have returned to Israel. But why now? What unexpected force is accelerating their return at a staggering pace. Deuteronomy 30 verse 3 says, "Then the Lord your God will restore your fortunes and have compassion on you, and gather you again from all the nations where he scattered you." What mysterious force is pulling the people of Israel back to Israel right now that defies all human explanation? Ezekiel 37 verse 1 to 14 says, "Then he said to me, Son of man, these bones are the people of Israel. They say, Our bones are dried up, and our hope is gone, we are cut off. But this is what the sovereign Lord says, My people, I am going to open your graves and bring you up from them. I will bring you back to the land of Israel." What ghostly whisper from the graves is urging Israel's return? And could this same force be warning of something even greater on the horizon? Ezekiel saw it in a vision. A people scattered, lifeless, forgotten. A people who thought hope was lost. But here's what's even more amazing. It's still happening. The gathering is not over. What desperate call from Jerusalem is drawing them back against their will? The third sign, the third temple. Preparations are underway. For thousands of years, the Jewish people have been waiting for one moment: the rebuilding of the Holy Temple, a prophecy spoken of in the book of Daniel, the book of Revelation, the words of Jesus himself. And now, preparations are already happening. What sacred items was just found that could force the temple's construction overnight? This discovery could change everything, because the moment the third temple rises, a new chapter of prophecy begins. What ceremony are Jerusalem's priests planning that could ignite chaos across the Middle East? Daniel 9, verse 27. "Then he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week, but in the middle of the week he shall bring an end to sacrifice and offering." What shadowy figure is already negotiating this deadly covenant? Daniel's prophecy speaks of a future world leader who will make a 7-year peace agreement, but halfway through, he will stop the temple sacrifices. Which means the temple must exist. What secret deal has already been struck to rebuild the third temple, and who's betraying who to make it happen? Key pieces are already in place. One decision could change everything overnight. 2 Thessalonians 2, verse 4. "He will oppose and will exalt himself over everything that is called God or is worshipped, so that he sets himself up in God's temple, proclaiming himself to be God." What unholy alliance is forming to crown this false god? A partnership so unlikely, yet so inevitable, that it may be the final sign we've been waiting for. This passage describes a future event where the Antichrist will stand in the temple and declare himself as God. But how can this happen if there is no temple? The third temple must be built. But will its construction spark the ultimate showdown between nations? And right now, plans for that temple are already underway. The Temple Institute, an organization in Jerusalem, has one goal: to rebuild the Holy Temple. They have already created the sacred golden menorah, reconstructed the high priest's garments, forged the silver trumpets and temple vessels. The temple is already designed. The priests are already trained. All they need is permission to build. But what hidden battle must be fought before the first stone can be laid? Because something, or someone, is desperately trying to stop this from happening. Who's holding the final key to the temple's construction? And what are they waiting for to unleash it? But before the temple can be built, it must first be purified. And according to Numbers 19, purification requires one thing: the ashes of a perfect red heifer. Numbers 19, verse 2. This is the ordinance of the law which the Lord has commanded, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel, that they bring you a red heifer without blemish, in which there is no defect, and on which a yoke has never come." For over 2,000 years, the Jewish people have searched for a red heifer that meets these requirements. And in 2022, something incredible happened. 5 pure red heifers arrived in Israel from the United States. What dark omen appeared the day those red heifers landed that's left priests trembling in fear? These heifers are being carefully watched by the priests. If even one remains pure until it reaches the right age, it could be sacrificed to purify the site for the third temple. The final piece of the prophecy is falling into place. But what if the last piece is something no one expects? The biggest question is, where will the third temple be built? What explosive evidence just surfaced that could rewrite everything we know about the Temple Mount's true location? Some believe it will be built right next to the Dome of the Rock. What hidden document could hold the key to revealing the temple's true location? Others believe the entire Temple Mount must be cleared first. And some even suggest the true location of the Holy of Holies is elsewhere. One thing is clear: Jewish leaders are serious. They believe the temple will be built soon, and they are making preparations for it right now. What violent clash is brewing that could decide the temple's fate? And is this battle already beginning behind closed doors? The third temple is not just a Jewish prophecy. It's a countdown, and that countdown is accelerating. It is a sign of the end times. The signs are here, and every new development is pushing us closer to the inevitable. The temple is coming, and time is running out. The fourth sign: the nations are turning against Jerusalem. The Bible warned us, in the last days, the whole world will turn against Jerusalem. What treacherous alliance just formed in the shadows to betray Jerusalem? Political alliances will be formed. Nations will gather to divide the holy city, and Jerusalem will become the most controversial place on earth. Sound familiar? What secret meeting of world leaders just took place to decide Jerusalem's fate? Zechariah 12 verse 3 tells us, "On that day, when all the nations of the earth are gathered against her, I will make Jerusalem an immovable rock. All who try to move it will injure themselves." What fatal wound will strike the first nation to challenge this rock? This prophecy is happening right now. The United Nations is discussing control over Jerusalem. Nations around the world are calling for a divided Israel, and global pressure is increasing every day. Star, what desperate move is the UN planning next that could turn Jerusalem into a global battlefield overnight? Jerusalem has always been at the center of prophecy, but for the first time, the entire world is watching and waiting for the next move. Right now, world leaders are pushing for what they call the two-state solution, a plan that would divide Jerusalem, giving part of it to another nation, a plan that would take the holiest city in the world and place it under international control. But the Bible is clear: Jerusalem is God's city, and every nation that tries to divide it will face judgment. What horrifying punishment awaits the nations that defy God's city, and how soon will it strike? Joel 3 verse 2 says, "I will gather all nations and bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat. There I will put them on trial for what they did to my inheritance, Israel, because they scattered my people among the nations and divided up my land." God himself warned that dividing his land would bring judgment. And yet, the world is doing it anyway. Look at what's happening around the world. Nations that once supported Israel are now turning away. Governments are condemning Israel's right to its own land. and global superpowers are aligning against Jerusalem. Every major world organization is watching Jerusalem. Every powerful leader has an opinion about what should happen to the holy city. And all of it is pointing toward the fulfillment of prophecy. There is one place in Jerusalem that has caused more conflict than anywhere else on earth. The Temple Mount, the holiest site in Judaism. The place where the first and second temples once stood, and the location of a future third temple. And the battle for this one piece of land is leading the world toward a massive conflict. The Bible says Jerusalem will be the trigger for a coming global war, and we are already seeing it unfold. Prophecy is moving forward, faster than anyone expected. Zechariah 14 verse 2 says, "I will gather all the nations to Jerusalem to fight against it. The city will be captured." The world will gather against Jerusalem. The final war will center on this city. And when the nations rise against it, Jesus himself will return. While the world plots against Jerusalem, the city is being prepared. The people are returning, and the prophecies are aligning. The world may think it is in control, but God already wrote the final chapter. But will humanity's final attempts to resist prophecy lead to its downfall? And the King is coming. But the biggest prophecy of all is where Jesus will return. Zechariah 14 verse 4. On that day, his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives, east of Jerusalem, and the Mount of Olives will be split in two. When Jesus returns, he will stand on this very mountain. What strange activity on the Mount of Olives right now is signaling Jesus' feet are about to touch down, and when he does, the earth itself will split. It will be a sign that the King has returned. Science has confirmed that a fault line runs beneath the Mount of Olives. If a major earthquake happened, the mountain would literally split in two. Just like the Bible says. What seismic anomaly under the Mount of Olives is scientists scrambling to explain? And could it split any day now? Could this be another clue that prophecy is unfolding? The signs are here. Jerusalem is preparing, and time is running out. What's the one sign left on the Mount of Olives that will confirm Jesus' return is hours away? And what if we told you that sign is already appearing? Matthew 24, verse 42. Watch therefore, for you do not know what hour your Lord is coming. Jesus is coming back. Jerusalem is getting ready. But when the time comes, will the world recognize the signs or be caught completely off guard? The Bible is a history book like no other. You won't find one like it in any public library. It tells the story of the earth from the very beginning to the very end. No other history book covers so much. One reason is that no human was there at the beginning to see it happen and write it down. That means no person can tell the full story of how our world started. We are the only people who know how everything will end. That makes us special. God did not tell his followers about the future just to satisfy their curiosity. He told them so they would be ready when it happened. He didn't want them to be surprised or confused. Be thankful that Jesus was honest in telling us what's coming. People ask, are we in the end times? But the Bible talks about the last days, and those last days started a long time ago, 2,000 years ago, in fact. The last days began at Pentecost. That's when the first prophecy about the last days came true. Every Christian generation should live in a way that is ready for the Lord's return. The Bible is full of prophecies, predictions about the future. There are 735 prophecies in the Bible. In fact, 1 out of every 4 chapters contains a prophecy. From start to finish, the Bible is a book of prophecy. though some books focus on it more than others. Out of those 735 prophecies, 596 have already come true, exactly as the Bible said they would. That means 81% of all Bible prophecies have already happened. Some of these prophecies were written hundreds of years before they came true. If 81% has happened already, it's not hard to believe that the last 19% will also come true. That's a very high success rate. The Bible has been 100% right about every prophecy that could have been fulfilled by now. Most of the remaining prophecies are about Jesus' return and what happens after that. So, how many prophecies still need to happen before Jesus comes back? The answer is about 20. We are watching for those to come true first before we look for the Lord's return. Jesus told us to watch and pray. What are we watching for? We can't just stand still and stare at the sky, waiting for Him to show up. That's not what He meant. He meant we should pay attention to what's happening in the world and look for the signs He gave us to help us get ready. Signals are the signs. So, let's turn to Matthew chapter 24, where the disciples asked Him, "What will be the signs or signals of your return?" What would we do if we don't know when it's going to happen? Jesus gave them a clear and simple answer. We can thank God that He made it so easy to understand. In the book of Revelation, He gives a much longer and more detailed answer, but here, He lists the signs that will come before His return. The disciples came to Jesus in private while He was sitting on the Mount of Olives. Matthew 24 says, "Later, Jesus sat on the Mount of Olives. His disciples came to Him privately and said, 'Tell us, when will all this happen? What sign will signal your return and the end of the world?' Jesus told them, 'Don't let anyone mislead you. For many will come in my name, claiming, I am the Messiah. They will deceive many. And you will hear of wars and threats of wars. But don't panic. Yes, these things must take place, but the end won't follow immediately. Nation will go to war against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in many parts of the world. But all this is only the first of the birth pains, with more to come. Then you will be arrested, persecuted, and killed. You will be hated all over the world because you are my followers, and many will turn away from me and betray and hate each other. And many false prophets will appear and will deceive many people. Sin will be rampant everywhere, and the love of many will grow cold. But the one who endures to the end will be saved. And the good news about the kingdom will be preached throughout the whole world, so that all nations will hear it. And then the end will come. The day is coming when you will see what Daniel the prophet spoke about, the sacrilegious object that causes desecration standing in the holy place. Reader, pay attention. Then those in Judea must flee to the hills. A person out on the deck of a roof must not go down into the house to pack. A person out in the field must not return even to get a coat. How terrible it will be for pregnant women and for nursing mothers in those days. And pray that your flight will not be in winter or on the Sabbath, for there will be greater anguish than at any time since the world began, and it will never be so great again. In fact, unless that time of calamity is shortened, not a single person will survive, but it will be shortened for the sake of God's chosen ones. Then, if anyone tells you, 'Look, here is the Messiah,' or 'There he is,' don't believe it. For false messiahs and false prophets will rise up and perform great signs and wonders so as to deceive, if possible, even God's chosen ones. See, I have warned you about this ahead of time. So if someone tells you, 'Look, the Messiah is out in the desert,' don't bother to go and look. Or, 'Look, he is hiding here,' don't believe it. For as the lightning flashes in the east and shines to the west, so it will be when the Son of Man comes. Just as the gathering of vultures shows there is a carcass nearby, so these signs indicate that the end is near. Immediately after the anguish of those days, the sun will be darkened, the moon will give no light, the stars will fall from the sky, and the powers in the heavens will be shaken. And then at last, the sign that the Son of Man is coming will appear in the heavens. And there will be deep mourning among all the peoples of the earth. And they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he will send out his angels with the mighty blast of a trumpet. And they will gather his chosen ones from all over the world, from the farthest ends of the earth and heaven. Now, learn a lesson from the fig tree. When its branches bud and its leaves begin to sprout, you know that summer is near. In the same way, when you see all these things, you can know his return is very near, right at the door. I tell you the truth, this generation will not pass from the scene until all these things take place. Heaven and earth will disappear, but my words will never disappear. However, no one knows the day or hour when these things will happen, not even the angels in heaven or the Son himself. Only the Father knows. Now, in that part of the Bible, Jesus gave 4 clear signs of his return. One of those signs is already happening, but the other 3 have not yet come. That is why I say, we are in the beginning of the end times. So,